The World is Flat is the title of Thomas L. Friedman's 2005 book on globalization, in which he argues that since the year 2000, the world has been in a third era of globalization defined by the newfound power for individuals to collaborate and compete globally. In this video, we will take a look at the nation-states of Sri Lanka, Saudi Arabia, and Puerto Rico, and analyze how the lack of representation, poverty, and the inability for people of these nations to compete on a global stage show that the world is not as flat as Friedman argues it is. Beginning with the lack of representation, it is evident that the people of all three nation-states are not universally represented and therefore not supported by their governments. Whether it's little to no help from the government, economic instability, or ethnic tensions, it is obvious that these nation-states are struggling to function. Puerto Rico is economically unstable. They are trapped in cycles of meeting short-term obligations to creditors. An example of this is laying off 30,000 public sector workers, along with increasing sales tax from 7% to 11.5% to keep up with payments. 1/3 of money annually goes to creditors, making it complicated to keep up with payments. 87% of Saudi Arabia's income comes from its exports in oil, which allows the government to completely forget about the majority of the members of the country. Since most of the money is coming from outside the country, they do not need to tax the Saudi Arabian people, so no taxation means no representation. They leave them to starve and suffer with disease and impoverished living conditions. Just 6 years ago saw the end of Sri Lanka's 26-year-long civil war. Ethnic tensions between the Buddhist Sinhalese majority and the Hindu Tamil minority date back to European imperialism and boiled over in 1983 between the Liberation Tigers of Tamil Eelam, or the LTTE, and members of the government. The conflict was put to rest with the defeat of the LTTE in May of 2009, but the tensions remain. As of 2012, 370,000 people in Sri Lanka were considered internally displaced, meaning they were forced to leave their homes but remain in Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka does not have freedom of the press and has rejected efforts of outside groups to analyze war crimes committed by both sides during the Civil War, as well as the current state of human rights in Sri Lanka. Though the new president, Maithripala Sirisena, elected in 2015, promised to make efforts to make reparations, the Tamil people still have a lot of uncertainty in their future in Sri Lanka. With little to no representation, the people of these nation-states fall victim to impoverished and disease-stricken livelihoods. Poor education, flawed healthcare systems, and no social welfare have contributed to these unflat living conditions for these nations. Tamils in the regions of Sri Lanka that were most affected by the conflict live in poverty. Farmers and fishermen were among the most deeply affected. Much of the infrastructure in Tamil-populated areas was destroyed in the conflict. Post-Civil War optimism led to poor investments, many of which failed, leading to the suicides of many of the investors. Debt and salaries are a huge issue in these nation-states. Puerto Rico has the highest debt per capita of all of the states in the U.S. Puerto Rico has an average of $15,637 of debt per capita. The second highest is Connecticut, sitting at $5,491, which is almost 2/3 less than that of Puerto Rico. Large percentages struggle to survive with little pay. Although Saudi Arabia's per capita income is $22,939, a little over 20% of the nation-state people live on less than $6,500 a year, living in the slums. Puerto Rico is currently experiencing a Zika virus epidemic. Since 2015, there have been over 17,315 cases. Along with this, Saudi Arabia has been dealing with an ongoing struggle with the coronary heart disease, which alongside stroke, influenza, and pneumonia have been the top 3 leading causes for deaths in Saudi Arabia. Only 60% of Puerto Rico's population has attained a high school degree or higher level of education. Only 18.3% have a bachelor's degree or higher. Only 57% of Saudi Arabian males have at least a high school education, and only 50% of women in Saudi Arabia have a high school education. The inability for individuals to compete in global markets is just one of the issues faced by these nation-states. There is a lack of connectivity throughout. Some examples of this could include the lack of internet. Only 73.9% of Puerto Ricans have access to the internet, and only 64.7% of Saudi Arabians have access to the internet. The economy in Puerto Rico is mainly driven by manufacturing, which is its main export. Saudi Arabia's economy is mainly driven by oil exporting. Manufacturing and oil are the main industries, but individuals struggle to compete in the global market. Tamil business owners in Sri Lanka face more governmental red tape than their Sinhalese counterparts. After analyzing these nation-states, it's obvious that the world is not as flat as Friedman argues it is. The nation-states of Sri Lanka, Saudi Arabia, and Puerto Rico have a lack of representation, high poverty rates, and an overall inability to compete in global markets.